What would you do if everyone you trusted turned their back on you, and the only way to survive was to vanish? In this story, a young woman's desperate escape collides with fate when an imposing Ute warrior finds her lost and broken in the wilderness. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. Emma Thompson stared at the worn-out document in her trembling hands. The will, yellowed with age, made her heart sink. Her parents, now lying in the cold ground after a tragic accident, had left their modest Colorado homestead to her older brother James, effectively leaving her with nothing but a few personal belongings. "I can't believe they would do this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The small wooden cabin that had been her home for all 22 years of her life was to be sold, with James getting everything. He stood across the room, arms folded, an uncomfortable expression on his face. "Emma, you need to understand. Father always believed a woman should marry and be provided for by her husband. He expected you'd be married by now," James explained, his voice tinged with rehearsed sympathy. Emma's blue eyes flashed with anger. "So because I chose not to marry Thomas Miller, that entitled merchant who only wanted me for my cooking skills, I'm to be cast out? With nothing?" Her brother sighed heavily. "You have 2 weeks to gather your things. I've already found a buyer for the property." Emma felt the walls closing in. 2 weeks to rebuild her entire life. The injustice burned like fire in her chest. That night, as moonlight filtered through her bedroom window, she made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, Emma rode into town on her chestnut mare, determination set in her jaw. She entered the bank with purposeful strides, approaching Mr. Peterson, who had known her since childhood. "Miss Thompson, my condolences on your loss," he said, removing his spectacles. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I need to discuss the sale of the Thompson property," Emma stated firmly. The banker's eyebrows shot up. "But I understood your brother James was handling the sale." "The property isn't solely his to sell," Emma replied, pulling out documents from her satchel. "My name is on the deed as well. My father added it on my 18th birthday. James doesn't know." Mr. Peterson examined the papers, nodding slowly. "Indeed, Miss Thompson. You are legally entitled to half the proceeds of any sale." 2 days later, Emma watched as her brother stormed into the cabin, face red with fury. "What have you done?" he bellowed, waving papers in her face. "You sold the property behind my back." Emma stood tall. "I sold my half, which was rightfully mine. The buyer was more than happy to purchase your half as well, at a premium price. The money has been deposited in your account." "You had no right," James shouted. "I had every right," Emma replied calmly. "And now I'm leaving. There's nothing for me here anymore." That evening, Emma packed her most precious belongings, her mother's silver hand mirror, a few books, clothes, and provisions. She took one last look at the home that held all her memories before mounting her horse and riding away into the fading sunset. Emma had a plan. Her mother's sister lived in California. It would be a long and dangerous journey, but Aunt Harriet was the only family who had ever shown her true kindness. With the money from the sale of her half of the property, Emma could start a new life. The first few days of travel went smoothly. Emma followed the well-traveled routes, staying at inns when possible. But as she ventured further west, settlements grew sparse. On the 7th day, a violent storm forced her off the main trail. "It's all right, Maple," she soothed her frightened horse as thunder crashed overhead. "We'll find shelter." The rain came down in sheets, obscuring her vision. Emma pulled her coat tighter, shivering as the cold seeped through her clothes. Lightning struck a nearby tree, sending Maple into a panic. The horse reared suddenly, throwing Emma to the ground before bolting into the darkness. "Maple, come back!" Emma cried out, but her voice was swallowed by the howling wind. Dazed and alone, Emma stumbled through the downpour, calling for her horse until her voice grew hoarse. Hours passed. The storm eventually subsided, but Emma was hopelessly lost. Without her horse, provisions, or sense of direction, fear began to settle in her bones. "Stay calm," she told herself. "Follow the sun west when it rises." But as dawn broke and Emma surveyed her surroundings, her heart sank. She was in unknown territory, rocky terrain with sparse vegetation stretching as far as the eye could see. In the distance, Imposing mountains loomed like silent sentinels. This was not the Colorado she knew. This was wilderness untamed, and she was utterly alone. 3 days passed. Emma's lips were cracked from dehydration, her once pristine blue dress now torn and dirty. She had found a small stream on the second day, which had kept her alive, but hunger gnawed at her insides. The few berries she'd found weren't enough to sustain her. The terrain had grown increasingly difficult. Emma's boots, made for town life rather than wilderness trekking, were falling apart. Her feet were blistered and bloody. Each step became a testament to her diminishing will to survive. "Just keep moving," she muttered to herself, her voice barely audible. One foot in front of the other. The sun beat down mercilessly. Emma's fair skin, now burned and peeling, offered little protection. Her blonde hair hung in dirty tangles around her face. As the 4th day dawned, Emma could go no further. She collapsed beneath the sparse shade of a juniper tree, her strength finally giving out. "I'm sorry, Mother," she whispered, tears cutting clean tracks through the dust on her cheeks. "I tried." As consciousness began to slip away, Emma thought she heard hoofbeats. A hallucination, surely, her parched mind playing cruel tricks. But the sound grew closer, more distinct. With her last ounce of strength, Emma lifted her head. A figure on horseback approached through the heat haze, tall and imposing against the bright sky. The rider moved with confidence through the unforgiving landscape. Emma tried to call out, but only a raspy whisper escaped her lips before darkness claimed her. When Emma regained consciousness, the first sensation was of blessed coolness on her face. Her eyes fluttered open to find a damp cloth being pressed gently to her forehead. The face above her was unlike any she had seen before. Strong features, copper skin weathered by the elements, and dark eyes that studied her with both curiosity and caution. "Water," the man said simply, holding a skin pouch to her lips. Emma drank gratefully, the liquid bringing immediate relief to her parched throat. When she had taken her fill, she tried to sit up, but dizziness forced her back down. "Rest," her rescuer commanded. His English was accented but clear. "You are safe." Looking around, Emma realized she was in a small camp. A fire burned low nearby, and the smell of cooking meat made her stomach clench painfully. Night had fallen, and stars punctuated the vast sky above. "Who are you?" Emma managed to ask. "I am Coda," he replied, "of the Ute people." Emma had heard stories about the native tribes of the region, but she had never encountered them personally. In town, such meetings were rare and often fraught with tension. Yet here she was, owing her life to this stranger. "I'm Emma Thompson," she said. "Thank you for saving me." Coda nodded once, then moved to the fire. He returned with a wooden bowl containing some kind of stew. "Eat, slowly." The food was simple but delicious to Emma's starved body. As strength gradually returned, she observed her rescuer more carefully. Coda was dressed in a mixture of traditional native garments and what appeared to be traded goods. A buckskin shirt with intricate beadwork, leather leggings, and sturdy boots. A knife hung at his side, and nearby rested a rifle that looked well maintained. "What were you doing alone in this place?" Coda asked as Emma finished eating. "No white woman travels these lands without companions." Emma hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I was traveling to California, to my aunt's home. There was a storm, and my horse, she ran away. I've been lost for days." Coda's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes, perhaps skepticism, perhaps concern. "California is far. Many dangers between here and there." "I had no choice," Emma replied, her voice strengthening with the food in her stomach. "I couldn't stay where I was." For a long moment, Coda studied her. Then he stood. "Sleep now. Tomorrow we talk more." Emma wanted to ask more questions, where exactly they were, what Coda was doing alone in this wilderness, whether he would help her continue her journey. But exhaustion pulled at her, and soon she drifted into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in days. Morning came with the scent of pine and sage. Emma awoke feeling remarkably better, though still weak. Coda was already awake, tending to a magnificent pinto horse that grazed nearby. "Good morning," Emma called, pushing herself to a sitting position. Coda approached, offering her a water skin and some dried meat. "You slept long. Good for healing. Where are we?" Emma asked between careful bites. 3 days' ride from white settlements, Coda replied. We are in Ute hunting grounds. Emma's heart sank. 3 days? I've wandered so far? Coda nodded. Storm pushed you into the canyons. Easy to become lost here. And you? Why are you alone? I've heard that your people usually travel together. A shadow crossed Coda's face. I hunt alone this season. His tone suggested there was more to the story, but he clearly had no intention of sharing it. Will you help me? Emma asked directly. I need to reach California, or at least find my way back to a settlement where I can arrange further travel. Coda was silent for a long moment. Why do you run, Emma Thompson? Truth this time. Emma swallowed hard. Something in Coda's steady gaze made lies seem futile. My parents died. They left everything to my brother, who intended to cast me out with nothing. I sold my share of our property and left before he could stop me. I have no one except my aunt in California. Coda considered her words, then nodded slowly. I will take you to Junction Creek Trading Post. From there you can find passage west. Relief flooded through Emma. Thank you. I can pay you. Coda raised a hand to stop her. No payment. But you must be strong enough to ride. We rest one more day, then go. That day passed with Emma regaining her strength. Coda showed her which plants were edible, how to find water in seemingly dry places. He spoke little of himself, though Emma learned he was considered a skilled warrior among his people. When she asked why he hunted alone, he would only say that it was a time of decision for him. As night fell again, they sat by the fire, the silence between them no longer uncomfortable. Emma found herself studying Coda's profile against the flames, wondering about the life he led, so different from her own. Your people, she ventured. Are they far from here? My band camps near the mountains to the north, Coda replied. When summer ends, they will move to winter grounds. Will you return to them? Coda stared into the fire. That depends on what I find on this journey. What are you looking for? Emma asked softly. For the first time, Coda smiled. Just a slight curve of his lips, but it transformed his stern features. Same as you, perhaps. A path forward when old ways are blocked. The simple truth of his words resonated deeply with Emma. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they shared a common quest. That night, as she drifted to sleep under the vast canopy of stars, Emma felt less alone than she had in a very long time. Dawn broke crisp and clear as Emma and Coda prepared to depart. Emma wore her tattered dress, now somewhat mended with Coda's help, and a buckskin vest he had offered her for additional warmth. The mornings in this high country grew increasingly cold as autumn approached. You will ride with me, Coda explained, adjusting his pinto's saddle. Spirit is strong. He can carry two until we find another horse. Emma approached the magnificent animal cautiously. In town, she had only ridden gentle mares bred for docility. Spirit was clearly a warrior's mount. Powerful, alert, with intelligent eyes that seemed to assess her. He's beautiful, she said, extending a hand slowly. To her surprise, Spirit nudged her palm gently. Coda watched with a raised eyebrow. He accepts you. This is good. Mounting proved challenging with Emma's still weakened state, but Coda helped her up before swinging effortlessly behind her. The closeness was immediately uncomfortable, not physically, but because such proximity to a man who wasn't family would have been scandalous in her former life. Yet here, in the wilderness, such concerns seemed trivial compared to survival. They rode steadily through the morning, Coda occasionally pointing out landmarks or explaining aspects of the terrain. Emma learned more in those hours about reading the natural world than in all her previous years. The trading post is 2 days' ride, Coda explained as they stopped to rest at midday. We will camp tonight near Owl Creek. Have you been to this trading post before? Emma asked, sipping water from the skin he offered. Coda nodded. Many times. The man who runs it, McGregor, is fair to my people. Not all white traders are. Emma felt a pang of shame at this simple truth. I'm sorry for how your people have been treated. You did not cause it, Coda replied matter-of-factly, but you should know of it. As they continued their journey, Emma found herself sharing more about her life, her childhood on the Colorado homestead, her mother's quiet strength, her father's stern but usually fair nature. She spoke of her brother James's gradual change after their mother died, how he'd grown increasingly like their father in his rigid beliefs about a woman's place. "Father wanted me to marry the merchant's son," she explained as they rode through a narrow valley. "Thomas Miller was wealthy but cruel. I saw how he treated his servants. I refused, and father never forgave me. Among my people," Coda said after a thoughtful pause, "a woman may refuse any man. Her spirit must match his for a good pairing." "That sounds more sensible than arranging marriages based on property and status," Emma replied. "Though I suppose every culture has its own ways." Coda nodded. "Yes, but some ways bring harmony, others bring suffering." As evening approached, they reached Owl Creek, a modest stream cutting through a small wooded area that offered welcome shelter. Coda efficiently set up camp while Emma, determined not to be helpless, gathered firewood and filled their water skins. Over a dinner of rabbit that Coda had snared, Emma finally gathered the courage to ask what had been on her mind all day. "You said you're on a journey of decision. What did you mean?" Coda was silent for so long that Emma thought he might not answer. Finally, he set down his wooden bowl and looked directly at her. "My father was our band's chief," he began. "He died last winter. Many expected me to take his place, but there are disagreements among our council about the path forward." "What kind of disagreements?" Emma asked gently. "Some believe we must fight to keep our lands. Others think we should negotiate with white settlers, find a way to live alongside them." Coda's voice remained level, but Emma could sense the deep conflict beneath his words. "My father believed in finding middle ground. I share this view, but some call it weakness. So you left to think about it?" "I left to seek a vision," Coda corrected. "To find clarity away from others' voices. It is our way when faced with great decisions." Emma nodded, understanding the need for solitude when life's path seemed uncertain. "And have you found your answer?" "Not yet," Coda replied, his dark eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "But the journey is not over." That night, as they prepared to sleep on opposite sides of the fire, Emma found herself wondering about the complexities of Coda's world. So different from hers in many ways, yet filled with the same human struggles for purpose and belonging. She was drifting toward sleep when a sound jerked her fully awake, the unmistakable snapping of a twig nearby. Coda was already on his feet, rifle in hand, his posture tense and alert. "What is it?" Emma whispered, fear clutching at her heart. "Stay down," Coda commanded softly, moving silently toward the edge of their camp. The next moments happened with frightening speed. 3 men burst into the clearing, guns drawn. Even in the dim firelight, Emma could see they were rough-looking white men, the kind that populated the lawless territories between settlements. "Well, look what we found, boys," the tallest one drawled, his beard matted and filthy. "An Injun and his white woman." "She's too pretty to be with a savage," another commented, eyeing Emma in a way that made her skin crawl. Coda stood motionless, his rifle pointed steadily at the first man. "We want no trouble. Move on." The third man laughed. "Hear that? The Injun speaks good English. Must have learned it at one of them government schools." "We're just passing through," Emma said, finding her voice despite her fear. "Please leave us be." "Oh, we'll leave the Injun be," the bearded man replied with a menacing grin. "After we take you and his horse. Might even let him live if he cooperates." What happened next was a blur. Coda moved with lightning speed, firing his rifle at the ground near the men's feet, then charging forward in the moment of confusion. The bearded man got off a wild shot that went wide, but before he could fire again, Coda had knocked him to the ground. The other 2 rushed Coda simultaneously. Emma watched in horror as the 3 men grappled with her companion, their greater numbers giving them advantage despite Coda's superior skill. Without thinking, Emma grabbed a burning branch from the fire and rushed forward. With all her strength, she swung it at the back of one attacker, who howled in pain as sparks showered his jacket. The momentary distraction was enough for Coda to gain the upper hand, landing a powerful blow that rendered 1 man unconscious. The remaining 2, seeing the tide turn, scrambled backward. "This ain't worth dying for," the bearded one muttered, blood streaming from his nose. "Let's go." They dragged their unconscious companion away, disappearing into the darkness with curses and threats. In the sudden quiet, Emma stood trembling, the fire branch still clutched in her white-knuckled grip. Coda gently took it from her hands and returned it to the fire. "Are you hurt?" he asked, examining a cut on his own forearm. "No," Emma managed, her voice unsteady. "But you are." "It is nothing," Coda assured her, though he allowed her to clean and bind the wound with a strip of cloth. "You fought well," he said as she tied off the bandage. Most white women would have screamed or fainted. Despite everything, Emma felt a flicker of pride at his words. "I'm discovering I'm not like most white women." Coda's eyes met hers, and something passed between them. A moment of understanding, of mutual respect that transcended their different worlds. "We should move," he said after a moment. "They may return with others." Within minutes they had packed their meager camp and mounted Spirit. They rode for another hour before finding a well-concealed spot to rest until dawn. This time Coda made no fire, and they sat close together for warmth in the chill night air. "Thank you," Emma said softly in the darkness, "for protecting me." "You protected me as well," Coda replied. "We are even." The simplicity of his statement brought unexpected tears to Emma's eyes. In her former life, she had always been seen as someone to be protected, never as a protector herself. The realization that she possessed such courage was both frightening and exhilarating. As they settled to sleep, closer now due to necessity rather than choice, Emma felt herself changing, shedding old beliefs and fears like a snake sheds its skin. The woman who had left Colorado was disappearing, and who would emerge at journey's end remained to be seen. The attack had changed something between them. As they rode the next day, the previous formality had given way to a cautious companionship. Coda shared more openly about his people's traditions, while Emma spoke of her dreams beyond reaching California, perhaps opening a small school or bookshop, living independently in a way her father would never have approved. "Your spirit is strong," Coda observed as they paused to rest Spirit near a clear spring. "Like the women of my tribe. They do not bow easily." Emma smiled at the comparison. "I think I would like your people, and some would like you," Coda replied with unexpected warmth, though others would be suspicious. "As they should be," Emma acknowledged. "White settlers haven't given your people much reason to trust us." They traveled more cautiously after the encounter with the bandits, avoiding open trails and keeping to cover when possible. By late afternoon, they crested a ridge, and Coda pointed to a plume of smoke in the distance. "McGregor's trading post," he explained. "We will reach it by nightfall." Emma felt a curious mixture of relief and regret. The trading post meant safety, the chance to continue her journey to California, and the end of her time with Coda. This man who had begun as a stranger, then become her rescuer, had somehow become more in these few days. Not quite a friend, but something she had no word for. "What will you do after?" she asked. "Will you return to your people?" Coda was quiet for a moment. "I think my vision quest is complete," he finally said. "I have my answer." "Which is?" His dark eyes held hers steadily. "That there can be understanding between different worlds when there is respect. That change comes not from force, but from wisdom." Emma nodded, sensing the significance of his words. "Your people are fortunate to have such a leader." "If they will have me," Coda added. "Some will resist my views. Then they'll learn what I've learned," Emma replied with conviction. "That you possess both strength and compassion. Those are rare qualities in any man, of any race." Something flickered in Coda's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or gratitude for her understanding. He urged Spirit forward without responding, but Emma felt the moment lingering between them. As dusk fell, they approached the trading post, a collection of sturdy log buildings surrounded by a wooden palisade. Smoke rose from the main building's chimney, and lanterns glowed in the windows. To Emma, after days in the wilderness, it looked like a palace. A gruff voice called out as they neared the gate. "Who goes there?" "Coda of the Ute with a companion," Coda replied calmly. The gate swung open to reveal a barrel-chested man with a shock of red hair and a formidable beard streaked with gray. His weathered face broke into a smile when he recognized Coda. "Well, I'll be damned," he said in a thick Scottish accent. "Didn't expect to see you before the first snow." His curious gaze shifted to Emma, and with a lady no less. "This is Emma Thompson," Coda explained, dismounting and helping Emma down. "She was lost in the canyons. I found her near death. McGregor's bushy eyebrows shot up. Lost were you, lass? That's no place for a city woman. It wasn't by choice, Emma replied, straightening her shoulders despite her bedraggled appearance. My horse bolted during a storm. The trader studied her for a moment, then nodded. Well, your lucky Coda found you. Most wouldn't have survived alone out there. He gestured toward the main building. Come in, both of you. My wife will have food ready, and she'll be glad for another woman's company. Inside the trading post was a haven of warmth and civilization after days in the wild. Mrs. McGregor, a kindly woman with iron-gray hair, immediately took charge of Emma, providing clean clothes and hot water for washing, while the men settled spirit in the stable. You poor dear, she clucked as she helped Emma change into a simple but clean dress. What a terrible ordeal you've had. But you're safe now. Emma smiled gratefully. Thanks to Kota. I wouldn't have survived without him. Mrs. McGregor's expression grew thoughtful. He's a good man, that one. Different from many of his tribe. More open to new ways, but still proud of the old ones. She paused, folding Emma's tattered dress. My husband says he'll likely be chief someday. Over a hearty dinner of venison stew and fresh bread, McGregor explained that a supply wagon would be leaving for Denver in 2 days. You can ride with them, Miss Thompson. From Denver, there are regular stages to California. Thank you, Emma replied, the reality of continuing her journey suddenly concrete. She glanced at Kota, who sat quietly at the table, his face unreadable. Later, as Emma prepared for her first night in a real bed since leaving home, there was a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find Kota standing there, something wrapped in soft leather in his hands. I leave at first light, he said without preamble. My people will be moving to winter grounds soon. I must return. Oh, Emma replied, a surprising sadness welling up. I hope to say goodbye properly tomorrow. This is better, Kota said simply. He held out the leather-wrapped bundle. For you, to remember our journey. Emma carefully unwrapped it to reveal a small but exquisite dream catcher, its web intricately woven with threads of different colors, tiny beads catching the lamplight. It is Ute tradition, Kota explained. The web catches bad dreams, letting only good ones pass through to the sleeper. It's beautiful, Emma whispered, genuinely touched. Thank you, Kota nodded once. May your path be straight, Emma Thompson. And yours, she replied, impulsively extending her hand in the white man's gesture of farewell. After a moment's hesitation, Kota took it, his grip firm but gentle. Perhaps our paths will cross again. I would like that, Emma said honestly. With a final nod, Kota turned and walked away down the hallway. Emma watched until he disappeared from sight, then closed her door softly, the dream catcher still in her hand. 2 days later, Emma sat beside the driver of the supply wagon, watching the trading post grow smaller in the distance. Her journey was far from over, but she felt ready for whatever lay ahead in a way she hadn't before. In her trunk were her few possessions, including Kota's dream catcher and a letter of introduction from McGregor to a friend in Denver who might help her secure safe passage to California. But more valuable than these were the unseen things she carried. Newfound courage, independence, and the knowledge that she was stronger than she had ever imagined. 6 months later, Emma stood outside her small bookshop in Sacramento, arranging a display of new titles in the window. The spring sun warmed her face as she worked, her mind momentarily drifting back to those desperate days in the wilderness and the man who had saved her life. The shop bell jingled, pulling her from her reverie. Emma turned, her customary welcoming smile freezing on her face as she recognized the tall figure silhouetted in the doorway. Kota, she whispered in disbelief. He stepped forward, dressed now in a curious blend of traditional native garments and white man's clothes. A silver band encircled his upper arm, the mark of a chief Emma knew from their conversations. Emma Thompson, he said, his voice exactly as she remembered. Your path has brought you far, as has yours, she replied, noting the new confidence in his bearing. You return to your people. As their chief, he confirmed. We have made treaties with the white authorities. Not perfect, but a beginning. I lead a delegation to speak with government officials. He paused. And I remembered you spoke of Sacramento. Emma felt warmth spreading through her chest. You came looking for me? To see if you found your dream, Coda replied simply. I see that you have. Emma looked around her small but thriving shop, thinking of the modest home she had purchased, the friends she had made, the life she had built from nothing. Yes, I believe I have. Then I am glad our paths have crossed again, Coda said, a rare smile transforming his serious face. Outside the window, Sacramento bustled with activity, a city where different cultures mingled and commerce thrived. Inside, two people from vastly different worlds shared a moment of connection that transcended the boundaries others had drawn between them. Would you like some tea? Emma asked, gesturing toward the small sitting area at the back of the shop. I'd love to hear about your journey. As Coda followed her, Emma touched the tiny dream catcher she now wore as a pendant around her neck. Sometimes it seemed good dreams found their way not just through sleep, but through the waking world as well. I have much to tell, Coda said, settling into a chair across from her, and much to ask about your new life. In that moment, Emma knew with certainty that her journey hadn't ended when she reached California. In some ways, it was just beginning. And this unexpected reunion was proof that sometimes, the paths we choose lead us back to the people who helped us find our strength when we needed it most.